Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Learning with Head Charts and Improvisation with Brent Campbell of the Brandon Jazz Festival. In the summertime, we did a great chat with Brent with our whole crew at the reading sessions, and then with my lack of spectacular tech skills at the time, we've had to re-record it. So Brent is kind enough to join us today and re-record some of the content of his presentation. So I'm going to change the view so you see more of Brent than me, and turn it over to him. Yay, Brent! Thank you so much for doing this.
Hi, Trish. Hi again. Yeah, when we were on before, Trish asked me to just talk a little bit about what to do in these times for jazz and for head tunes. And great, great idea. Doing head tunes with small groups is a great way to engage small groups and actually to let kids do a lot of stuff on their own. It doesn't matter the instrumentation. It doesn't matter how many kids you've got. You can uh, Kids can do this and be playing jazz and be doing it with the minimal of supervision and teacher input. So it's a great idea. So basically, head tunes. Head tunes are standard jazz tunes. I say standard that most people know. While the list is huge, and not everybody agrees on what all the best head tunes are. There are certainly a lot of head tunes out there that you can use with your kids. And I'm going to give you just some ideas about some simple head tunes and what to do. First of all, head tune is a tune that the kid can, it's a simple melody based on a set of chord progressions. And the way it works is the kids usually play through the melody and then they take turn improvising over the chord progressions, and then they play the head tune on the out chorus, we call it, and you're done. And it can be as elaborate or as simple as you want to make it for the kids. And um, and there are some super simple head tunes. Most of the beginner head tunes you'll use are probably based on the blues. And you can do, I mean, there's a head tune that uses two notes. And It just couldn't be simpler than that. Um, there are lots of great resources out there for kids to use, or for you to use. If you just type in and do a Google search for beginner head tunes, you'll come up with thousands of entries. So, I mean, I could give you lists, and I'll actually send one to Trish that she can share with you too. But really, a Google search, beginner head tunes, jazz, something like that, you will get thousands and thousands of ideas. And of course, the great thing is you can get recordings of all of these too. So that's such a great idea, is to get the head tunes, um, and then have the kids listen to recordings. And you don't have to provide the recordings for kids. The kids these days, if you tell them to listen to this tune, they can go out and they can find it in a million different places, and it's all there. It's all free and easy to get on YouTube or Spotify or wherever, Amazon Music, iTunes. So having them listen to the tunes and then doing their own thing on it is the way to go. Really, they can, if they have any kind of a rhythm section together, or they generate an electronic rhythm section through Band in a Box, or I'm sure there are other programs. I'm so out of touch. I don't know what's out there, but they can generate a rhythm section and they can play. A great resource are the Aebersold books. Jamie Aebersold play along books. There's over 100 volumes out there now, and so you can find almost any tune that you want. But the great thing about the Aebersold books is, if you do need the written music, they give it to you in all of the different keys: in E flat, in B flat, in treble clef, in bass clef. So, and they give you the recordings. They give you the backing tracks that the kids can play along with. So that's a great resource, is the Aebersold. I know a lot of people kind of are not keen, or a lot of professional musicians are look down upon the Aebersold recordings, but they are a great resource for the beginners. And and to do. I don't know now about doing it together in sync over the internet. I don't know all of that technology, but I know that Jen has done some workshops on how to do it so there's very little latency, very little lag time between, so that they can play together in real time um, on the internet. Yeah, that technology is beyond me. I have no idea what it's about, but it's out there. I know it is. What kind of equipment you need, I don't know. But kids can get together and play. And even if they can't get together, they can do this stuff on their own if they get a backing track and figure out how to do their head tunes. So it's a great, it's something that if you show them how to do it, they can do it on their own, and they can have fun doing it. Yeah.
I think you probably underestimate how much you do know, because knowing that the Jazz Education Network has been doing some of that research into latency and ways around it and all of that. I mean, you might not know the name of the platform, but you know the research is going on what the problems are. But yeah, so I will dig around and find a link. I know Brent's got a handout he's going to send to me, so we'll link that beside where we're housing this on the page, and I'll include that there. But yeah, I am so glad to hear you talking about the Abersold and like the approaching the standards, and the software stuff is changing minute to minute as we all evolve, and the longer we live in this, it all changes. But I think the core is still super important. So I just wanted to mention that yeah, I'll make sure that those things are cited in the handout that we link. Back to you.
Yeah. I don't know. I know that things are across the country are at different stages. Like here in Manitoba, some school divisions are doing absolutely no music. There's no band, there's no choir, there's nothing. All the band and the music teachers have been repurposed and are teaching other courses. And that, yet in some school divisions in different provinces, or even in Manitoba, they're allowing music to be done. Kids are spaced out. They have masks or something on their instruments and they're playing. Um, so it's a real hit and miss situation across the country. So every situation is different. I know. I yeah. In terms of doing the head tunes again, it's just fun for the kids to be doing something and doing it together. Yeah. As long as they have some kind of a rhythm section or somebody can plunk out chords on the piano, it's pretty easy. I've also got some. Uh, I've got a couple of books that I'll recommend to Trish too about doing. Let me see if I have it here written down. I don't. Um, for piano players, like if you have a kid that's interested in being a piano player, there's a couple of really great books. One is the Frank Mantooth book on how to. I think it's jazz piano keyboard voicings for jazz piano. The late great Frank Mantooth has a book out, and it's a little more advanced, but it gives you some formulas that you can use to play great sounding jazz voicings on the piano. Another one is Jazz Rock Voicings for the Contemporary Keyboard Player by Dan Hurley. And I think it's from the 70s, so it's not so contemporary, but still, it's great beginner, for the younger kid, teaches them how to voice chords so they sound good in jazz, using thirds and sevenths and ninths, and some very simple formulas that if all they have is a classical background, they still understand the theory behind thirds and sevenths, and so then you have a kid can learn how to play keyboard and sound really good on the piano, which is pretty important for when you're having a combo. Most combos have a piano or some kind of a harmonic instrument, whether it's piano or guitar or banjo or ukulele. So there's a couple of good things. And again, for a bass player, get them to download stuff. There's so much free stuff out there. How to play simple bass lines, jazz bass lines, using roots, thirds, fifths, sevenths, chromatic leading into the root and stuff like that. Super easy to teach kids how to play a jazz bass line. And yeah, turn them loose. Let them go at it. It's amazing if they're interested in it, what they will learn and pick up.
I think that's one of the coolest things about jazz, and it's the reason I wanted you to be the one to speak to this is because I know that if you give them the framework, they can just sort of like carry off on their own, and that's the whole principle behind the music. That having been said, I know a lot of people, as they were going through university, didn't end up doing a lot in their university jazz bands, learning a lot from that perspective. So, if you had never had to start doing working with a head chart or introduce that concept to working with the kids, can you give me a little sort of a step by step of how it would probably be the easiest way to do it, and then people after they've sort of got that under their belt can sort of get a little more free form on their own?
Well, yeah. So first of all, I would usually start with the playing a recording for them. Back when I started doing this, I had CDs, and we didn't have all the stuff that you could get on the internet. So I would bring in CDs. I had a 500 CDs in my band room office that I would loan out to kids and sign them out and everything like that, and let them make them listen, because I always told them, I said, yeah, you can learn to speak French out of a book, but it's probably not going to sound very French unless you know what French sounds like and are able to like imitate it that way. So you need to be listening to jazz first to get the idea of what jazz sounds like. Now, so and of course I'm always referencing the jazz that I like, jazz from the 50s, 60s, 70s, which is not probably current with what the kids are listening to and what they think, you know, jazz is. But that was just my perspective. So getting them to listen to jazz and getting that idea of what it is in their head, even if they don't understand it. Because let's face it, a lot of people are turned off by jazz because they don't understand it and they can't figure out the concept of, oh, there's a form and a structure and a set of changes, and this is what they're doing. So get them to listen to it, and then we would take a simple melody like C jam blues, right? Two notes, and we're for my wind players, we'd probably play in B flat. Um, but then I would teach them how to play the head. We would just go over the head and teach it to them by rote. I wouldn't even use music. In fact, most of the head tunes that I would teach in the beginning, I wouldn't use music as the first thing. I would teach it to them by rote, get them to be able to hear the tune in their head, to be able to sing it over and over, um, and then get them to play it on their horn. And only later would I maybe show them the notation. And then we would discuss the underlying structure of of the tune. And for a lot of the head tunes, that was just based on blues. So we'd talk about what the underlying structure and the form of blues is. And of course, there's many variations on blues, right? There's not just one. There's many variations. But we would talk about them and get them to realize, oh yeah, this is 12 bars long, and get them to count out and signal when we're starting the the start of the form again, and just put up their hand and stuff like that. Then I would get them to outline on their instrument the roots of the chords and get them to play that, and 1 4 1 1 4 4 1 1 5 4 1, whatever structure you're going to use or whatever form, so that then now they have a sense of, in their ear and in their brain, they have a sense of what the structure is, what the chord changes are based on the roots, what the melody is, and then get them to start to improvise and learn what notes are kind of keynotes in the chord structures, thirds and sevenths, and how those relate and how they move between each other. How the third of the one chord moves to the seventh of the four chord, or the seventh of the five chord, and that kind of voice leading and stuff, and just get them to do that, and just get them to freely improvise. I would also do a lot of playing and call and response. Play something and get them to respond back and to try to play it exactly the way I would play it, and do a lot of call response and get gradually more and more complex. You start off with one note and some rhythmic variations, and then maybe go to two notes. There's another book that I used that I really liked. It was very, very simple. It was called Chop Monster by Shelley Berg. And I think it was an Alfred publication, and it's probably still available. But it was great for the kids to call and response, listen and repeat back to develop their ear. Anyways, that's what we would do is start without the music and get them to hear it and get it up here and to learn to play here. And then we would go on and I'd say, okay, we would have the music playing and I'd say, just sing a simple little riff or something like that. Sing it. And actually I would never say sing it. I always tell the kids, just say your simple riff, because kids, you tell them sing unless you're in the Mennonite country. The kids don't like to sing and very much. So you tell them to say it, they're going to sing it anyways. They never just say it, they sing it. So they're singing back these little riffs. I say, okay, good, now play that. And they're like, oh. And so you get them to say it, sing it, and then get them to try to play it back, because that's really what improvisation is the immediate hearing it in your head, putting it on your horn. And it just takes practice for the kids to be able to do that. So that's one of the other exercises that we would do, is the sing it and then play it exercise. And then get them to just keep track of the form, especially when they weren't playing, when somebody else was soloing. I would really engage them to keep track of the form, so that somebody else is soloing. Every time we get to the top of the form, hands just go up like this, so that they're always engaged and always knowing where they are in the form. Because when they're actually playing and doing you're actually improvising, it's very easy to get lost in the form. You go, where am I? And I always tell them, I said, it's not up to the person that's playing to know where they are in the form. It's up to the person that's going to come in next to know where they are in the form. Because, sometimes if they're going and they're getting lost, it's up to you to step in and kind of give them a little nudge and say, okay, you're done. Now it's my turn. That's we would always have that. It's very easy to get lost. Anyways.
My family still rescues me when I get lost like that.
Exactly. You always need that person that's going to come in. They're the ones that need to know where they are and when to come in to help the other person out. So, so that we would do that on a lot of blues tunes. Then the other form, of course, is AABA, and we would play some tunes that are AABA or versions of AABA, and get them to hear again the chord changes. The A and the last A section are the same, and these are chord changes, and then the B section is different. And we would do a lot of modal tunes like that are AABA, just because it's easy to hear the form for those. It's maybe not that easy to improvise over them, or as easy as people think. But we would do a lot of stuff like that. We would do those things, and we would play some modal songs that weren't straight AABA. We would play, there's some really good ones that have maybe 4 chord changes, like Cantaloupe Island or something like that, where they're on 1 chord change for 4 bars. And teach them, for that we would teach them the relationship of the whatever chord we're on, whether it's a minor 7th and you use a Dorian scale, or a major, just a 7 chord, and you can use maybe a bebop scale or something like that. But teach them the relationship between certain scales and certain chords, qualities of chords, and how those work. And again, getting them to hear the tune, play the tune, hear the chord changes, outline the form with the roots, and always at the top of the form, oh yeah, we're back at the top. This is where it is. Because knowing where they are in the form really helps them to understand the whole concept of, playing jazz is. You have a form, you have the head tune, which is over the form. You have people improvising while still all over the form. That's why they know where they are all the time. And then coming back to the head and getting out. And that really helps them when they understand that.
I could totally see that. Sorry, I've had myself muted because somebody's shoveling snow out here. But I can see, and I'm so glad that you laid it out that way, because in the way you laid it out, I can actually see how you would be able to deliver this, whether you had the kids in your room with you, whether, and by kids I mean you could be doing this with your community band and they'd still be your kids, because
Yeah,
let's not talk about my teachers being my kids. Anyway, so you could lay it out so that it was, if you were in person you could do it, if you were sort of kind of in person, like if you were isolating and your band was still together, you could still be guiding that in this sort of way. Or if you're completely online, you could actually, when you were talking about, having the room know where the soloist is, like everybody could be muted listening to this person and then they could help guide them back. There are those oral cues, there are all of those things. So I think that's really really cool. I'm so glad you laid it out that way so you could actually see where it would fit in whatever our delivery mechanism is at any given time right now. I
yeah,
mean, normally it would be in the room, and when you were still teaching, it was in the room. And right now, everybody's upside down. So, being able to apply some of that normalcy and some of that time tested knowledge into that kind of a platform that way is so helpful.
yeah. And doing the remote thing, you could do that with the kids and say, okay, this is what I want you to work on today. Listen to the form, always know where the form is, and or go through and be able to play the roots of the chords and stuff like that, and to let them work on that and come back having done that. And of course, with anything else, if the kids do it and they spend some time at it, they're going to get better at it. And if they don't, they don't. But that's the way it is, anyways, in the classroom or outside of the classroom, right? But yeah, so the kids have to work at it and just can't do it just when we're interacting. It's got to be some outside work to see any progression.
Yeah, I could see that. And I mean, really, I mean, listening right now is such a big thing for all of us because there's not a lot of going out and doing other things. So how amazing to be able to start listening to something new. And I like the focus on form side of it, because that's, once you know what the form is, you can be free from it. Until then, if you're doing something free, well, are you really?
And late towards the end of my career, part of this thing where I would give out my CDs and stuff and give them the stuff I thought they needed to listen to. And then it got towards the end where, when I was teaching, that there was so much available on the internet, YouTube and Spotify even. And it's just, I, kids would say, well, can I do this? Can I do this? Because they're listening to groups now that I have no clue who they are, or I have no recordings of them. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. If you think it's jazz, listen to it, write a report on it, and tell me why it's jazz and stuff. And they're
Neat.
bringing me all of these recordings of people that I have no clue who were, but I would listen to them and I'm like, yeah, I can see that. And this is stuff that they liked. I mean, they don't like all the stuff from the 50s and Ben Webster and all the stuff that I was really into. I know. So they're bringing me all these new artists and really into what they're doing. And I was like, okay, now can you tell me what the form of this song is? And could you hear this? And they would explain it to me because they knew what to look for and knew what to listen to. And it was great. They were turning me on to new music and showing me that they understood the concepts that I had tried to show them. And they so I thought that was great with the advent of all of this stuff that's so available online. I was like, good for you. Yeah.
Silver linings, right? This is what I'm trying to focus on now, the silver linings of the situations we're in. Like, students can access anything now, and that is a double edged sword, of course. But, I mean, if you tell them that recording X is a really good performance recording of something, and say, go find me three others and tell me which one you like the best and why. There are all kinds of things like that that you can build this out into now that would have been much more challenging before. And
Oh
or
yeah.
even impossible, depending on the thing, right?
Impossible, because you had to go out and actually buy a record or buy a CD.
Yeah,
You there was no such thing as downloading music or listening to it on the internet or YouTube. You had to buy something.
yeah.
Uh, that could get expensive. And
Especially when you don't know what you like yet.
yeah, and even when you did know what you like, I mean, I can remember a Sonny Rollins CD I bought that I thought was terrible. Same thing, Sarah Vaughan, love Sarah Vaughan, right? I found this album. Sarah Vaughan loves sings the Beatles. I thought, great, it's gonna be great. It was the worst thing I think. I was like, I
Why
really
did
didn't
I do
listen to the
this?
whole thing. So anyway, but now you could just there it is. No, don't like it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's changed how I've dealt with music myself. So anyway, but I'm so glad you did this. Before I sort of wrap things up, I have two questions for you. You talked about the Abersold books,
Yeah.
which I mean most of us probably dealt with at some point in our musical development anyway, and I love that they're still around. What are your two favorites for getting students started?
Oh,
The blue one,
uh,
right?
in, oh, that's a tough one. I like the Herbie Hancock one.
Okay.
Um, oh,
I think Blues in All Keys was probably one that was huge too, but
blues in all keys. But I mean, how many times do you play a blues in D flat or a blues in
true.
D? Really? Oh, unless you're a violin player.
And
Um,
usually singing with me, but
yeah, or guitar. The Herbie Hancock one. I don't know. There's quite a few that are really good. I like
oh,
the. You know what? I like the. You talk about blues and all keys, but I like the kind of the modal workout one. What is it? Where
oh,
they
yeah.
they like they play a Dorian. They play a minor seventh chord in all keys, so you can spend a long time on just on one scale. And I think it's number 24 or something like. I think it's a two
That
bar.
that sounds right. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but yeah, yeah, I'm not sure.
Cool. Along that same line, I think it was you who actually put me onto approaching the standards.
Approaching the standards.
That's the Willie Hill one with
Oh,
it's almost written as a learning combo kind of book.
yeah, approaching the standards. Willie Hill. It was at Dick Dunscombe.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that was okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like Willie's book. Um, yeah, it's good. There's
Yeah.
also um, there's a fake book, beginner jazz fake book or something like that. That's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of stuff out there to
Yeah.
find. And actually, probably most of this music you can get online and
Yeah.
screenshot or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of it to find, right? So that's cool. I just um last question. Head charts. Back to head charts and doing the head charts. What are your three favorite CJAM for sure? Three favorite things that you were great with for beginners using that methodology.
Well, I liked Cantaloupe Island. I like Watermelon Man. Um, what else? Oh, mm, Freddie Freeloader was a good one. I like that one because
Yeah.
it's a blues, but it's got a little twist at the end there, and you to teach them to say, okay, we're not going where you think we're going. We're doing this. Um, so I like that. Um, C Jam Blues was okay. We always used to call it C Jam Blues in B flat, but you could play it in, but you could do it in any key. Uh, um, uh, I like all blues
Yes. Yeah,
just
fair.
because it's different feel. It's got 3/4 and it's in a
Mhm.
different key. It's in the
Yeah.
key of G normally. And then there's a Blue Monk was another one.
Yeah. This is
Uh,
cool. I'm looking like I mean, we don't always when you're leaping into something like that, if there's something that you really love as a tune, but you know it's going to be way too tough for the kids to do, that's a different headspace. Whereas this is like, okay, here are three tunes immediately that you can go have simple melodies and you can just make this fly. And then you can start getting out into the deeper water as it were.
yep, yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think some people are probably already doing this. Some people haven't had to do it for a while and could use the extra, oh yeah, that's how that goes, So that was the intent behind doing this is just making it so that it was there for people who weren't doing a ton of it and all of that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate this so much. Thank you so much. I am going to say goodbye and end our recording and hang on for a second, and we'll chat at the end. But
Okay.
thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Brent, for going through all of this because you are so much better at this than I. This is not my area of expertise, and I'm very grateful for your help. So yeah, great. Great to see you.
Stay well, everybody.